Hello, welcome to Theory of Mind. My name is Francesco Belafonte, and you are joining me in the entranceway of the former Harbison's Dairies in the East Kensington neighborhood of Philadelphia. Today's May 5th, happy Cinco de Mayo. I'm standing in front of old school milk pasteurizer, made by the Weimer brothers in 1912. This is back when milk was pasteurized in a physically distant way, I imagine, compared to today. I assume it's probably done in big vaults, big containers, metal containers, I would imagine, and then put in the bottles or cartons. So you put the fuel down here and put it up. I wanted to talk about the news that I heard last night about COVID-19 and the latest projections. I kind of stepped away for a week. The news wasn't serving me. I didn't need the information from the standpoint of what there was for me to do to protect myself, my loved ones, and my community. So I kind of tuned it out. And I checked back in, and I heard the news that where we are in the death toll and what the projections are going forward, and the fact that if we aren't already, but we will very soon be in position where 3,000 people are dying a day. So, there's a 9/11 every day, and wow, talk about a soundbite for a political campaign. And if you have, it doesn't look good for our president as far as re-election, let's be frank, but that's not what I want to talk about. He's probably anxious. That's what I want to talk about, is anxiety. This is upstairs in my place here. If you haven't heard me say it yet, if you haven't been following me, I'm a really lucky guy, and I'm grateful for my luck, and I'm grateful that I'm grateful. And the simple truth is, I have not been feeling anxiety. I have aged parents. I do not want them to die, but I'm not anxious about it. And it took a long time for me to have a much lower level of anxiety than I used to. And I want to begin to share something that I teased not long ago, and that was how one can be isolated and relish it and love it and appreciate it and look forward to it and not feel anxiety, but rather solitude. So let's talk about that. Let me sit down here and wet my whistle. Okay. All right. So I'm not going to cover this all in one shot here. I'd be here for hours. So I'm going to start with a narrative and then talk about the lessons as I get to them. And I'm going to keep this probably to maybe 10 minutes tops. So I was 5 years old in 1976. I don't remember much besides the following. I had lifesavers. I was told not to give them to my sister, KB, Kristen. She was 2. She wanted one. I gave her a yellow one. We were in the kitchen. I grew up in Wilmington, Delaware, in North Wilmington, Delaware, a suburb. Just really a 5-minute trot up the road to the state line to Pennsylvania and the azimuth of Delaware, which is the highest point in the state. Within a single ranch, 2,000 square foot home sitting on a half-acre lot. And we are in the kitchen. My back is up against that green from the 70s. We have the washer and dryer in the kitchen. I've given the lifesaver to Kristen. My father is right in front of me here at the stove. He's probably cooking breakfast or something. He's cooking. My mother's not around. I don't know where my brother Mark is. Nancy doesn't exist yet. KB, Kristen, call her KB now, I didn't call her KB then, started choking. I was like, oh no. I remember. My father turned around and grabbed her. She was tiny, and my father he's not tall, but he's a big, strong Italian. And he grabbed her. And she started changing colors. Like, it was clear, like she wasn't breathing. Like she was choking on the lifesaver. And I'm like, OMG, are you effing kidding? I mean, I wasn't. That was the feeling, because I was only 5. He is patting her on the back, and it is not helping. And I'm like, oh my God, I killed my sister. I'm gonna kill my sister. Oh my God. He reaches in with his finger. And then he sticks it down her throat. And there's a convulsion. She projectile, he like dodges, and it sprayed this way. It sprayed this way. She immediately starts screaming. And I was so friggin' relieved. I was so friggin' relieved. The only other thing I remember is my mother. She showed up, not until it was over. And then she came out, and I think I was still with my back up against it, just like, OMG. And she's on the floor, and she found the lifesaver. And I don't remember it being punished. I think they were probably just so grateful she was alive. Something happened as a result of that experience. I became, and I didn't know it, but I became what's called an emetophobe. This is someone who has an irrational fear of vomiting. You feel overwhelming anxiety. I have chills. My childhood was racked with anxiety, fear, and stress and sleeplessness every single time someone I knew or someone in my family got a bug that caused them to throw up. If possible, I tried to leave and go somewhere else, like to a friend's house, but that couldn't last. Like if I had to go to school, I wasn't gonna, I guess part of me was even embarrassed to admit how afraid of throwing up I was, and I didn't distinguish that, as I think now, I believe because of the trauma, because that's what it was. I was traumatized by that experience. I think just in witnessing it, thinking that my sister might die right in front of my eyes, not to mention the fact that I did it by contradicting my parents' direction. Don't give these to your sister. She could choke. Yeah, they were right. So, I believe that I developed emetophobia because of this trauma. I think I associated, not surprisingly, vomiting, puking, throwing up, tossing your cookies with dying. So I was anxious as you know what, all the time whenever that happened. So something happened, and I want to read it because I won't do it justice if I try to do it extemporaneously. And I need my glasses again. So this is a piece on Medium, which I'll put the link to, but it had happened again. We are now, I think, the summer of 1979, and KB is sick again. She's still not KB, she's still just Kristen. And for the record, Kristen stole my babyhood. So we were like this as kids. We're peas and carrots now, but anyway. Okay, here we go. It was at the end of the summer of 1979, and Kristen was sick again. This time from an infection, apparently. She'd thrown up twice after dinner the day before. As a matter of habit, given my infection-evading regime, I retreated to the bedroom that I shared with my older brother, Mark. He wasn't there, so I closed the door behind me and sat on the edge of my bed, facing a window that looked out on the front yard. My head was positioned, so I couldn't see any part of my body when I looked straight ahead through the window. Branches of a birch tree swayed up and down in the gentle summer breeze. With my gaze fixed and unfocused, I fell into a comfortable state of silent reverie as I thought about what was going on. I thought, why did Kristen have to get sick? Why am I so afraid of throwing up? Why do people throw up? Why does it have to be this way? Why does it have to be like this? Why is it like this? Why is it the way it is? Why is what is happening happening? What is going on? What is? What is existence? What is? What is existing? What is? What is being? What does that mean, to be? What is? I repeated that last question silently to myself over and over again. What is? What is? After about half a minute or so, focused on contemplating that question, something extraordinary happened. I lost my sense of self. The voice in my head went silent, and I stopped thinking completely. I forgot who I was and what was going on in my life. My ever-present frame of reference for the world vanished. With it went my sense of time and awareness of my body, too. The scene in front of me remained the same. The branches of the birch tree were still rising and falling in the breeze, but the sense that I was looking at the tree from somewhere behind my eyes was missing. There was just the world and my selfless awareness of it. It was a blissful state of mind where all that was felt interconnected. Gone was the sense of being separate from my surroundings. Everything that existed was part of the same one thing, complete, unbound, free, whole. I'm getting goosebumps. All that was one. And I, my sense of me, was nowhere to be found. This detached, egoless state of consciousness didn't last for very long, maybe 5 seconds at most. But it was a mind-blowing wonder to me. It made me dizzy and caused my head to dip. I saw my legs, and my brief taste of this selfless awareness came to an abrupt end. When the spell broke, my sense of self, memories of my past, and knowledge of my present all snapped back into place in an instant. I was a stressed-out 8-year-old, ametophobe again, reoriented once more to the story the voice in my head had been narrating for years. I'd stumbled into and out of a state of self-transcendence without recognizing it as such, because I had no context to do so. I didn't know what that was. Instead, my 8-year-old mind, so accustomed and comfortable with its own sense of self, misinterpreted the experience as some kind of self-induced, momentary spell of amnesia. I knew what that was, and I had forgotten myself. This seemed unlikely to me, so I had to try to do it again. I wanted to know if forgetting myself and my worries was something I could do on demand. In the interest of time, I'm gonna tell you that it worked. I did it again right in a row. It blew my mind. Once again, the few all-filled moments I spent temporarily unencumbered by my usual mental luggage made me dizzy and caused my head to dip. My second visit to this ego-transcendent state was as brief as the first, but delight displaced my disbelief when the spell ended this time. Finding the blissfully discombobulating state of consciousness again with such relative ease convinced me that I hadn't imagined the whole thing. Plus, I seemed to have some grasp on how to make it happen on demand, and I was quite content to have this know-how at my disposal for future bouts with barf-inducing infections that I knew I would inevitably face. The big finish. Many years later, it seems that the most remarkable aspect of my chance discovery was my monumental misunderstanding of what I had experienced. At 8 years old, I was already married to the idea that myself was the essential part of me that was located somewhere inside of my skull, behind my eyes. One moment. I saw myself, or I, if you prefer, as the general manager of my consciousness, the controller of the voluntary actions of my body, the thinker of my thoughts, the decider of my decisions, the chooser of my choices, and the imaginer of my imaginings. I was the subject of every experience I experienced, and the source or the author of the ever-present voice in my head. As an altar boy to be, who was raised by Roman Catholic parents, I referred to this essential part of me, this nucleus of control that I believed was guiding my consciousness, as my spirit or my soul. This was the supposedly free-willing, supposedly eternal part of me that my mother told me would survive the death of my body and continue to have experiences of a kind that were unimaginable to me while I was still alive. I was so attached to this view of myself as the central controlling authority in my life that I mistook my relief from ametophobic distress as a brief escape from reality versus what I view it as almost 40 years later. Well, maybe 43 now, because I think I wrote this 3 years ago. Now it seems apparent to me that my spontaneous, impromptu meditation provided me with a momentary glimpse of an incredible truth about the human experience that I wasn't able to comprehend at 8 years old. As I see it, and as many other people do, Buddha, Mr. Sam Harris, many, many, many people. As I see it, there is no essential self. There is no central I or me anywhere inside or outside of your body that controls it or the thoughts, intentions, and feelings that arise within consciousness. The voice in my head that I previously self-identified with and saw as the genuine controller of every decision I made isn't in control of anything. I'm going to say that again. The voice in my head that I previously self-identified with and saw as the genuine controller of every decision I made isn't in control of anything. Just because knowledge of what I'm about to do arrives within my field of consciousness or my conscious awareness before anyone else's, that does not mean that I consciously decide the course of history. Thinking that any individual possesses that power stems from a confused and necessarily egotistical view of personhood. Egotistical is different than egocentric. I'm not going to pause for that. Do that on your own. Be curious. What's the difference between egocentric and egotistic? There's an interesting nuance there, people. Take it from the guy who all he did was read the dictionary when he was a kid. It's cursed me forever into particularity of language. Well, it's also blessed me. I'm a kid. Just because knowledge of what I'm about to do arrives within my field of consciousness before anyone else's doesn't mean that I consciously decide the course of history. Thinking that any single individual possesses that power stems from a confused and necessarily egotistical view of personhood. Instead, I believe that we are miraculous, meaning-making, storytelling animals that are playing our roles in the unfolding of the cosmos. We are not authoring them. No one consciously controls the events occurring in their brain that they are unaware of and that lead to every single thought that pops into their consciousness. No one. It took me a long time to learn that, okay? So again, I can't rattle off all the lessons, but that is, I think, a nice introduction to what I'm going to be doing with Theory of Mind here at IamEinstein.com and at IamEinstein on Twitter. So I would love for you to continue to come back and provide me the opportunity to share you with, I believe, what are invaluable lessons that I have learned over the years. Until then, I wish you well. Please be safe. Peace.